What's going on, guys? Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges back with you on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We are here to start a new work week. And just like we talked about on Friday, we were going to get ourselves into a pretty unsettled stretch. And that's exactly what has happened over the past 24, 48 hours as we've watched this front stall out and really help trigger a lot of thunderstorms around. We had some flooding around the area last night, especially in New Smyrna Beach into Port Orange. Tonight, we had the Little Wekiva River get up. We had flood warnings because of several inches of rain in and around the Altamont Springs area. So this unsettled stretch is going to continue. We'll get into some of your questions in a little bit. Of course, we're coming at you live on News 6 Plus and on the News 6 YouTube channel. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Do me a favor, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, post those in the comment section. Meme Studio, good morning. Melissa, good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is. Good evening. Elizabeth, good evening. Jody, good evening as well. Unsettled stretch is going to continue through at least the middle portion of the week. And then I am cautiously optimistic that the most comfortable stretch of weather, the stretch might be a little bit too far of a stretch, but the most comfortable period of weather that we have felt in months comes our way for the weekend. Okay, we'll talk about that. King Tide, I don't think King Tide is happening. It should be later on in the fall. I don't know many king tides. Then on the tropical front, everything is quiet. Everything is quiet. That's what the stars there. We don't use those words because we don't want to jinx anything. And by and large, we should be quiet for the next couple of weeks. We've talked about this at length, that if there's going to be a switch that flips, it's going to be once we get into the third week of September. So that's what we're looking at right now with this period. So we're going to talk about what's going on out there right now. I got to get my radar back to the current, but we do have some downpours working their way through Central Florida right now. This is kind of a continuation. We really started it last night. We're going to continue to this unsettled stretch through the rest of at least through Wednesday. And then I think we start to taper off rain chances as we get towards Thursday, Friday, and especially your weekend. So, Jody, if you're looking for a time to go to the parks, this weekend is probably it. The rest of the week, I wouldn't chance it. I don't think they're going to be big, Richard, in the morning. He's asking if we're going to get any of those bigger ones in the morning, and for whatever reason, it's not displaying the names. Don't like when it does that. But it'll kind of look like this. I'll show you the future radar in just 1 second. But that's where we stand right now. Let me show you what's actually going on. There's a pretty gnarly swirl out there. So much, it looks like a subtropical storm, not tropical, not completely tropical, not completely non-tropical, but there's that, you see the swirl there on the Gulf side. There's also another area of low pressure on the Atlantic side, and then all of these clouds that pretty much stretch back to the Mexico border through the Bay of Campeche. This is an extensive front, and it's not moving, and that's the pathway that's sending the rain back to Central Florida and really throughout much of the state of Florida tonight. So you see the wind north of the front, out of the east, so that's why we have those downpours coming in pretty much from Orlando to Daytona Beach. Everything north of the front will see rain coming in from the east. Everything south of the front will see rain coming in from the west. And tomorrow is going to be no exception to that as we, I think, increase rain chances even further. We're back up to an 80% shot. So there is our swirl out there. Let's put this into motion. And that is 9 o'clock tonight. I think late tonight, we could have some more downpours. We were talking about Port Orange and Ormond by the Sea. There's where at 2 o'clock in the morning, we have some downpours, maybe a rogue rumble of thunder in there. And then a few of those could sneak on shore by tomorrow morning. No doubt the most widespread stuff comes in the afternoon and evening. Watch this as we take this forward into time. Let me back this up for the rest. And we have a ton of heavy rain out there over the Gulf. And all of that has to move on through. So you see there, that's 7 o'clock on your Tuesday. And then there you go, 8, 9, 10 o'clock pushing through. So all of that really is going to move from west to east as we have that spin out there through the course of the day tomorrow. That's again Tuesday at 11. So rain chance is pretty high. I have them at 80% for tomorrow and elevated on Wednesday as well. Look at the I mean, just look at this. It's pretty cool, all things considered. It's still going to be very, very humid. So the air mass, it's tropical in nature. It's one of the reasons why the rain is so heavy. We have those big, um, intense rainfall rates of 2 to 4 inches per hour. Pensacola tomorrow, we're at 87. Also that in Tampa and Orlando. 79 in Jacksonville tomorrow. Just wild. Vero Beach, right where we should be, we're at 89. The only spot that is above average in the temperature department is Miami, checking in at 90 degrees. So I mentioned before, we're going to keep a close eye on this throughout the week. Where does this front finally push south? There are indications that we could get a nice, big, early season cold front. It's not going to change the afternoon temperature a lot, but it's going to get rid of some of the humidity, especially the further you are away from the coast. It's really hard for a cold front to do its work this time of the year because the water temperature is still so warm and that kind of climate controls, especially areas close to the coast. But this is 6 o'clock on Thursday, and we still have evidence of that front just chilling right there. You see the red arrows representing the southerly wind and then the blue arrows representing the northerly wind. So the front would be right about here, okay? Let's take this out into the future. You see everything going to be pushed back to the south a little bit. Friday, we're still dealing, or Thursday, I should say, that's the afternoon, still dealing with some heavier rain, mainly Orlando and points to the south. And then eventually, look at that, Saturday and Sunday. We're watching the trend here, but I'm cautiously optimistic that for the first time since May, we could be making a run for the 60s in interior Central Florida. I think we're still stuck in the low to mid 70s along the coast because the water temperature is so warm. So let me take you through that real quick. Here we go, watching those numbers go down. A dew point temperature in September of 63 in Orlando and even lower than that in places like Ocala, in Lake County, Sumter County, Bushnell. It's going to be wild. Look at that. I mean, dew point temperatures in Tallahassee in the low 50s. I think this front means business. Again, it's not going to shave off air temperatures in the afternoon. We still have really strong sun at this time of the year. The water temperatures are still in the mid 80s. And again, all of that climate controls things and help things warm up. So that's one of the things that we're going to be watching for. But this front has a lot of dry air to it. And at the very least, I think it's going to give us a very nice weekend and a very comfortable weekend. So if you like walking outside or running outside or just hanging out on the porch with coffee, I think Sunday morning might be the best morning for that we've had in months. Alrighty, guys, I have to get to my first break. I have a couple of questions in here that were referring to the long range forecast. We'll get to those in just about 3 minutes. And then we're going to talk about the tropics coming up. And the good news is there's not a lot to talk about. So we're going to break that down coming up in 3 minutes. Alrighty, so Limitless Lightning had asked if I'm going to do a winter forecast, working on that as we speak, hoping to have that within the next week or so. Richard says tropics have nothing going on. Love that. I mean, it's gonna be wild. I think a couple of weeks, and then we're gonna see if the Atlantic can do anything. And that's one of the reasons why I was so bearish on Invest 91L. It's just so stable out there, especially in the main development region of the Atlantic, and that's where that thing originated from, and that's what killed it. And tonight, again, we have no new development expected over the next 7 days. We do have a couple of tropical waves out there that they're there, but there's also a lot of dry, stable air. Models have been too bullish on African waves all season long. The one unfortunate thing is, though, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to transition out of the Cabo Verde season, which is the storms that roll off of Africa and then work their way west to more of the Caribbean. See, there's still some juice going on right there. High chance for development in the Pacific, likely with that cluster of thunderstorms there rolling off of Central America. But the Gulf is pretty much shut down. All that stuff. So there's nothing brewing. The deal is, and we're going to take a look at this tomorrow in depth. So the Climate Prediction Center every Tuesday issues their two to 3 week tropical outlook. So I'm very interested to see what they say, but it's always looked like to me, we've had this discussion way back in July and August, that it was going to be mid to late September. Now that we're in September, it looks like it's going to be more late September, that the Madden-Julian oscillation is going to work its way through from the Pacific, and that's why they're seeing the increased activity. We still have that hurricane that's going to be passing north. It just looks like that because I only have half the data there. But the Pacific is still on fire, relatively speaking, and we are getting into fall. So one of the issues is, and I think the biggest reason why it's been quiet, again, all of this is thankfully, but as a scientist and as a meteorologist, I try to look for answers. We're atmospheric detectives. And the same thing happened last year, of course, where we should have storms, but we don't. And it's likely a stability issue. We talked about this. I showed you charts, and I'm going to bring those back in tomorrow's show, that until we get instability out there, these storms just really can't thrive. There's still some dry, dusty air out there. We talked about that being a part of Invest 91L's demise. You still see some orange and brown out there. Also in the Eastern Caribbean, some brown. There's a trough right there, that little counterclockwise spin. That'll rip things apart. So there's a lot of things right now working against development, especially coming off of Africa. So I want you to know that. The one area that we are going to watch is, I think, down the line, is going to be the Caribbean and Gulf over the next couple of weeks. So I think if hurricane season's going to do anything, it's going to happen from about September 20th, 21st through about maybe October 18th. And that might be the window of hurricane season. And it's going to be interesting to watch if this is a new trend, if this is a new normal where we basically have no hurricane season for the first half of the year, and then we get a flurry once we get into September, and it's because of a warming atmosphere. It takes some of the instability away. That's what we're going to have to watch and see. But whenever storms get going, they can get on the stronger side. So I wanted to show you the Saharan dust. It's still out there. It's playing a little bit of a role. Again, there's the enhanced satellite, so you can see where all the weather is. And then we have a little wave on just north of South America, a couple of extra ones out there. They have no sign of development whatsoever. And we still have a decent chunk of hurricane season to go. Of course, we have all of September, although I do think the next week to 2 weeks are relatively quiet. I think um I think the next shot again, third week of September through the middle of October, that 3 to 4 week period, that 3 to 4 week window. Paul brings up Hurricane Michael was October 7th, the last Cat 5 to hit Florida. I think I played this quiz once before, but since we're talking about Cat 5s, name all of the Cat 5s to make landfall in the United States. And I think our friend in Ormond Beach got the answer the one time. So he's already on. So don't answer. Name the four. Okay, I gave away the number. The four Cat 5 hurricanes to make landfall in the United States. But right. But that's what I'm kind of getting at here. Florida, climatologically speaking, is like the place to be hit once you get into that time, because now you have the dips in the jet stream. Anything that forms in the Western Caribbean gets lifted and then sent east. They could be like Matthew, where they form there and then get sent way, way east and then just kind of ride up the coast. He knows what I'm talking about, Richard. But that's kind of the deal. So here's where we stand. The climatological peak of hurricane season. I normally don't like saying that September 10th is the peak. That's just when you pull all the numbers, that's the date you get. It's really peak season. And peak season goes from about August 20th to about August 15th. And and then right in that window, that's whenever peak season happens. And then, of course, the last day of hurricane season is November 30th. So do with that what you will. One of the ways that we kind of classify hurricane season, of course, it's with name storms, and we are running behind schedule on that. We're also running now way behind on ACE. So there's a couple of things. I know we have the crowd that like, okay, they just named these weak storms to pad the numbers. Well, there's something to kind of keep that in check, to kind of put that narrative to bed. It's called ACE, or accumulated cyclone energy. It's whenever a storm becomes a tropical storm, there's these ACE units that are generated. Storm generates more ACE the stronger it is, so it's based on longevity and intensity. To date, putting all the storms together, and really the biggest driver of this was obviously Hurricane Aaron. It was a Cat 5. It was out there for a while. We have generated 39 ACE units, okay? The average to date is 53.4. So we're way behind on that front. We're way behind on named storms. The only one we're ahead of is major hurricanes. The first major hurricane on average is about, we might be behind on that on two. I think it's early September. So we're right on schedule with the major hurricanes. We'll see what the season can do. Hopefully it stays shut down everywhere. I'm suspecting, though, with the MJO passage, with La Nina coming in, and with the seasonal cooling to naturally give us more instability in the tropics, I think we're going to see that uptick once we get that MJO passage, and that's going to be late September to the first couple of weeks of October. If it doesn't happen then, that's it. That's it. Because that's like a steroids. All right, I'm going to read some of these comments. I got to hit another break. We'll be back in 3 minutes, and there's a lot of answers in there. Keep on answering. Name the 4 Cat 5 hurricanes to make landfall in the United States. I'll catch you in 3 minutes. I love it. And Paul corrected himself. He said there was a one in the 30s to Texas, but you are correct. So the four Category 5 hurricanes, since that was brought up, kind of a trivia question here. We asked what were the four Cat 5 hurricanes to make landfall in the United States. It was Michael. Somebody brought that up about being an October storm, and that's what stemmed this question. Also, Camille in 69, the Labor Day hurricane in 1935, and then, of course, Andrew in 1992. So, yes, Florida has three of the four Category 5 hurricane landfalls going forward. Okay, so I have a question here from Jody about the 15th. Monday, we still should be in that nice dry pattern. We're going to go back. And again, this is something that I am crossing my fingers on. It looks like this one has a shot, this cold front. And again, I know I'm saying cold front. Here, we are climate controlled in Florida because we are surrounded by water. So, because of that, along the coast, we're likely still going to wake up in the 70s on Sunday morning. We're also likely not going to see a huge temperature difference in the afternoon. It's still going to be hot, but it's going to be comfortably hot, at least warm. Temperatures in the upper 80s this weekend. We just need to nudge that front a little south. But these are the dew points. Remember, the higher the number, the more uncomfortable you are. The lower the number, the more comfortable you are. Unless you get like in the 20s and 30s, then that's when it starts to get really dry and you need the chapstick and all that stuff. That's wintertime stuff. We are talking about, I really think, a taste of fall, at least Florida fall, as we get back into the weekend. So, all that stuff. Yes. So, yeah, they're the storms that made landfall. Storms that made landfall. Yes. So that's another reason why I will. So Kimberly's asking about, we talked about Invest 91L. Kimberly's asking, so Gabrielle fizzled out. That's why I never, ever, 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 ever name a storm before it actually becomes that. Because I guarantee you now there's going to be confusion whenever Gabrielle finally comes along, which it will. We're likely going to get another storm. And people are going to be like, wait, didn't we have that one? And all too often on the social media, people are, okay, the moment there's a thunderstorm cloud out in the Atlantic, okay, this is Gabrielle. Can't do that. And I think that was on full display this past week with the major debacle that was the models, the social media hype, and all that other stuff that was Invest 91L. So yeah, we are nice and quiet out there. If you missed the tropical part, I'll show you the best thing that I can possibly show you right there. No new development over the next 7 days. When I was in Fort Irwin, California, we had a dew point of 17. That's crazy. And that's where you have that high wildfire danger, because I'm sure it was still a really warm to borderline hot day. And then that's what makes the relative humidity so different. Alrighty, guys, I'm up against my time. Coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about our unsettled pattern, the latest high resolution model data coming in between 10 and 11 o'clock. I'm going to show you that, of course. We had some flooding across the area today. We talked about the Little Wekiva River getting up to flood stage, and we could unfortunately see more of that over the next couple of days with these repeated rounds of heavy rain as that front is just stalled right over central Florida. All righty, guys. I got to run so I can make sure that I get on TV. If you're on News 6 Plus, keep it right here. If you are on the YouTube channel, it's going to be a different thumbnail. Right to the same channel, though. News 6 at 10 starts in just a couple of minutes. Thanks so much, guys, for all of the interaction, all of the questions. Melissa, real quick, Sandy was, quote unquote, only a Category 1, but it was a very large storm. And that's why we always say never pay attention. The category is important, but each storm is different. Each storm has its own personality. Sandy was its size and aggressive yank into the Northeast. Alrighty, guys, I really got to go. Bye. See you tomorrow, 9:30.